My deck has so many coats of paint, the gaps between the deck boards are completely filled in. How can I get the saw guide down in there to clean out the old paint? That looks like a worst-case scenario, with no space between the boards for water to drain or for air to circulate. When deck boards are installed too close together to each other, or are completely filled with layer after layer of paint, the saw guide has no gap to ride in. There are a couple ways to clean out old paint to make a channel for the saw guide fins to ride down. Depending on how thick and the hardness of the layered paint, you can use a hand tool in some situations called a backer board scoring knife. These are available at most local hardware and flooring stores. This tool is extremely strong and will last you a long time. It has 2 carbide scoring tips. These are normally used for scoring and cutting cement backer boards. When operating any tool, make sure you wear eye protection, and with power tools, hearing protection is recommended. Begin by scoring between the boards, pressing down hard and pulling straight with the knife, following the groove between the deck boards to remove the old paint. You can make multiple passes to make the gap deeper. To widen the groove, slightly lean the knife to one side and make a pass, then lean the tool to the other side to make another pass. This will make the channel that the saw guide fins can set down into. For situations with harder paint or deck boards installed with no gaps, you can use a grout removal tool that fits reciprocating saws or Sawzall. These are also available at local hardware and flooring stores. They're for removing grout from between ceramic tiles. Set the blade in between the boards and run the saw to cut a channel wide and deep enough for the saw guide fins to fit in. This may take several times. Note, it's easier to pull the blade toward you than it is to push it. So if you get a place where the blade stops and gouges, just pick up the blade, set it out past the gouge, run it again, pulling it through that spot until it runs freely. Okay, now we're ready for the saw guide to do its work. Loosen the depth adjustment screw on your circular saw. Now set the guide fins into the channel that you've just made. Set the blade depth down till it sets to the bottom of the channel and tighten the adjustment screw. Be careful for kickback when starting the saw. If the saw catches while pushing forward on this first pass, you may need to lighten the pressure by lifting up a little bit on the front fin. Now sweep out the sawdust. To set the depth for the next pass, loosen the depth adjustment screw on your circular saw, then set the saw base flat on the deck with the blade hanging over the edge. Lower the blade down to just above the bottom of the deck board thickness and tighten the adjustment screw. This is to avoid cutting into your floor joists. For this next pass, place the front guide fin in the channel and lift the tail end of the saw, and then lower the blade with both fins in the channel. Run the saw forward, slow and steady, and make a full pass. You may need to make several passes to widen the gap to about 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch. Make each pass by lightly pressing the saw guide to one side and then to the other side, trimming off equal amounts of each board till you get the desired space between the deck boards you want. If most of your deck has very narrow or no gap spaces, you may want to consider using a saw blade with a wider kerf. In other words, wider teeth to speed up efficiency. Wider teeth will make a wider cut, however, it will be rougher than using finer tooth blades. You can do the bulk of the work widening the gap with the wide tooth blade and use a fine tooth blade to make a smooth finish. It's always a good practice to waterproof the exposed wood once you finish widening out those spaces.